Welcome to the GreenLight Investor for the week ending August 7th, 2015. The goal of the GreenLight Investor is to provide a resource to make managing your 401k both a simple and easy process. We do this by using red, green, and yellow cells to help you decide when to buy, what to buy, and when to sell. This presentation is for educational purposes only and should not be used as personal investment advice. The examples shown are going to be exactly that. They're going to be examples of how you can use this worksheet to make managing your 401k choices both a simple and easy process. That said, let's go right into our worksheet. Each week we update this worksheet, and on the left side we'll start out with the investment choices available to you within your 401k plan. They're listed by the fund number, the symbol, the fund name, and a brief description of the fund. They're arranged by the core investments, which are the index funds at the top. And then as you scroll down this worksheet, you'll go into the satellite investments, starting with the money market funds, the fixed income, the U.S. growth and income, and you go into the U.S. equity funds, international, and finally the sector funds. As you go down the worksheet, they're generally the more conservative investments towards the top, and they get slightly more aggressive as you scroll down towards the bottom choices. In the middle part of the worksheet, we see the performance numbers for the year, and in this column we'll show the closing price for each of the funds, the month to date, the quarter to date, and the year to date return. The reason we post these is so you can get just a general idea of how your fund is doing against other funds that are available within your plan, and specifically against the other funds in the categories to make sure that you're staying generally to some of the better performing funds and avoiding any of the really poor performing funds. And by keeping track of the investment choices performance, you're able to do this. As you scroll down, you can see how each of the funds is performing. And finally, let's go over to what I think is the most important part of this worksheet, and that's the weekly trends. Each week we update the relative strength trend change on the week-over-week basis. When you see green lights, those are generally the stronger performing funds, and when you see the red lights down column V, those are generally the weaker performing funds on a week-over-week basis. When you see a category that generally looks red, that's generally been a fairly weak performing category, and when you see a category that's showing a little bit more green, it's easy way for us to spot the stronger performing categories. And down column W, we're going to highlight, let me show you where we're at. We'll highlight the relative strength trend for the current week. When the relative strength is strong, you'll see a green cell lit up in this area. And when you see that the relative strength is generally underperforming the other funds, it'll be red. In addition to just the color of the cell, we're going to show a numerical value that's going to show you the strength or the weakness. And this can be used in two ways. When you see a high number, you'll know that the fund has been performing strongly. But the other way that I think is more important to use it is on a week-over-week basis. You can see whether the numbers are getting stronger or weaker. And that helps give you an early warning as to whether your funds are getting weaker or whether they're going to change directions and go from a weak to a strong or from a strong to a weak. Also, when you scroll down this, you can see the general strength of the overall market. When you see a lot of red, that means that the market's generally been very weak. And in the fixed income particularly, and the growth in income, you can see that those have been weaker performing. With the U.S. equity funds, it's been mixed. You see some of the areas where there's been strength, and you see a transition where there's more and more weakness. So it's really been a sideways market for quite some time. More recently, though, we've seen the international funds trend from what has been a very strong area to an all red down column W, which is showing a general weakness in all of the different funds available. And the sector funds at the bottom, we've seen that just a couple of them have been performing relatively weakly, but in general those have held up fairly well. Okay, with all of that said, let's see how we can use this information to help you make sense of your 401k selections. What I'll do is show you how you can use another feature within this worksheet to see if you have any changes to make within the selections that you're currently using for your 401k. To get to that, you'll simply click on the view, go over to the custom views, and the area that we've set up is called my current allocation. When you click on show, you'll get a separate set of cells that will let you keep track of where you're currently allocated to within your 401k. And to see if there's any changes needed, you'll simply slide the bar over, and somewhere around here I like to see, what you'll generally see is that the long-term trend down column U is very important. You want to stay in bullish or in neutral areas, and then you'll confirm that selection by looking at column W. And what you'll want to see is that you're generally seeing a green cell here. If that turns to red, then that means that that sector has gone from strength to weakness, and it may be time for you to make a change. So let's scroll down and see how our current hypothetical portfolio is performing and see if there's any changes that are needed. Currently we have a 10% allocation, and when we look at the long-term trend as well as the confirming relative strength trend, they're both green, so there's nothing to do in this fund. Let's continue to scroll down. We have a 55% allocation waiting for more green cells to appear, and again, that's always going to be neutral in the money market. Just as an aside, when you see green cells here, you're seeing that the money market has actually outperformed many of the funds. So that's always interesting. So sometimes having an allocation into cash or a money market can be a strong thing when you're waiting for a market to correct. As we scroll down, we'll see that we have a zero allocation to the fixed income. The reason for that is that when we started seeing red out in this area, we moved the capital that we would normally allocate to this area over to the money market, where it's at least not going to go down. Here we're seeing that the long-term trend is bearish, as well as the relative strength trend on a week-over-week basis, so there's really no reason to be in these funds at this time. The U.S. growth in income, we would like to have 5% allocated, but we currently have a 0% allocation, and again, it's for the same reason. We see a lot of red on the right side, which is showing a relative strength trend that's weak. And here we're seeing generally very neutral, but we've decided to just follow the trend and stay out of this area. Next, we have a 30% target allocation to the U.S. equity funds, of which 20% is allocated. 10% was moved over to a money market as we started seeing more and more red appear. The 20% allocation we have here continues to show a bullish green light in the long-term trend, as well as a bullish green light in the relative strength trend score on a week-over-week basis. Even though this is showing a little bit of weakness, we're still seeing the green, so we'll continue to hold this allocation. Nothing needs to be done. In the international funds, where again we've seen this turn from a mixture of red and green to more red to all red for the last 2 weeks, we've elected to go to a 0% allocation currently, where we would like to have a 30% target. So once we start to see more and more of the green cells appear to the left and be confirmed by green cells appearing on the week-over-week trend change, that point we'll start making allocations back into this and hopefully getting back up to our 30% target. But with the zero, what that does is it keeps us safe from any prolonged downturns in this area. Finally, let's go to our target allocation in the sector funds. We have a 15% allocation to the sector funds. We're divided between 2 funds, one of which we have a 10% allocation. This one's still showing a long-term trend that's green or bullish, as well as a confirmation in column W, which is showing that the green light is still in force. So again, there's nothing that needs to be done to this allocation. And finally, let's look at our last allocation, which is a 5%. We're showing that the green is still appearing in the long-term trend, which is very important. So we'll continue to hold this. as well as the confirmation of the relative strength trend down column W. That's all you really need to do each week to look at the adjustments that may or may not be needed within your choices. Once you're set with that, that's all you need to do. The system is simply set up to help make sense of your 401k and help you decide when and if there's any changes that need to be made to your allocation and keep you out of harm's way during prolonged downturns. Generally, you'll see one or two adjustments during the year, so that's why we've set it up so it only takes a few minutes to go through each day to make sure that your capital's trying to stay in strength and stay away from weakness. That's what I've got for this week. Let's go ahead and go back to our general worksheet, and we'll do so by clicking on the custom views. Let's highlight the with performance columns, and we'll hit show. That takes us back to our main part of the worksheet, and that's what I've got for the week. If you'd like to download this worksheet, you can go to the greenlightinvestor.org, and I'll have this posted each week so you can download it if you want to go through this on your own. Or you can always send me an email at jweixner@greenlightinvestor.org, and I'd be happy to put you on a mailing list and deliver this each week to your inbox. And you can do just a 5-minute review of your 401k choices to make sure that you're satisfied with the choices that you've made. That's what I've got for this week. I hope it's been helpful and gives you some ideas and resources for managing your 401k choices. I hope you have a great week, and thank you for taking a few minutes out of your weekend to view this presentation. Thank you.